All right, team. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. This is LVD Sport with the first video, or our first video even, of 2025. I haven't done a video for a little while. Feel a bit out of practice, but hopefully we'll soon get into the swing of things. This year, I just have a sneaky feeling that perhaps this is going to be the year where we're going to see some sweeping changes within the sport. I have no evidence or I've heard any rumours. This is just feeling in my bones, as they say. With the Saudi money washing its way through the sport and just seeing how they operate once they've got their feet under the table of other sports, I've got a bit of a concerned feeling about what could be in store for the rest of this year. I have a feeling that there's going to be some alterations to the way the sport is run. We've already seen, I wouldn't quite say it's underhanded, but we've seen off-screen ceremonial weigh-ins become a thing, only for Saudi shows. Thanks to Sonny Edwards for pointing that out. He asked a question of Eddie Hearn prior to his fight with Galal Yafai, what time the weigh-in for his fight was going to be. He was informed, and he asked in return, why is it not going to be the same sort of weigh-in as a Saudi deal? And whereas Sonny was told ceremonial weigh-ins are only for the Saudis. Now, got to ask yourself, why is that? I have no concrete founding in this, in my theory, but I think it's purely and simply that the ceremonial weigh-in, the one that we don't see, is the one where they weigh in properly and everything is done above board. Or the ceremonial one that we see, purely for the cameras, purely for the gambling companies who sponsor these events. It's so they see the fighters at their best. They've previously weighed in. They already know what their weight is. So in the time that in between the official weigh-in and the ceremonial one, they will eat, look healthy, drink, fuel their systems, probably even have a rub down with some sort of oils or something to make them look more presentable for the cameras, so that when they flex, pose and have their weigh-in, in inverted commas, they look absolutely at their best, and that any prospective gamblers who have got a few quid to spare, well, they can go rush into their phones and put the bets on, as opposed if they see these emaciated husks at the weigh-in with their cheeks sucked in and maybe even potentially collapsing, which is something that you sometimes occasionally see, not that often, but you do see fighters collapsing at the weigh-in. Not the heavyweights, of course, but the lower weights. The last thing the Saudis want is some collapsed bodies on the stage while they stand there posing for their photographs. It's all done for effect, sadly. Anyway, that's my ramble on the ceremonial weigh-ins. I wasn't even going to start with that, but I just did. Another one, I just have a feeling that maybe we could see the start, not that it will happen in this year, but I think we could see potentially the start of the reduction of rounds. We've seen it over time. Back in the early glove days, the fights used to be 40, 30, 25 rounds, sometimes even more. I remember a fight in, I don't remember, but I remember reading about a fight in Paris with Joe Jeanette, heavyweight from back days yonder, which went for round after round after round, hundreds of rounds. And now, of course, over the time, 60s, 70s was 15 rounds, and then in the 1980s went down to 12. So we're getting on for 40 years in the current format. We are due a change, the way things are. Not that I want it, I'm not asking for this, I just think that could possibly be the way it is. Attention spans and how everything is shorter, and you have the new generation, they won't even watch YouTube videos now unless it's under a certain time frame. It's all TikTok. They'll watch a video about a video rather than watch the actual video itself. So I do think that perhaps changes in that way could be coming, especially I think if the way things are going in respect to what the Saudis, when they set out their stall, when they tell Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, whichever promoters they're associated with, that their long-term goal is for, boom. For example, I'm reasonably certain that the whole reason that the Saudis got involved in this boxing in the first place and got attached themselves to the heavyweight division was purely and utterly they wanted undisputed Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury on their soil. And it hasn't happened. Alexander Usyk has put paid to that. And now they are kind of left with, who knows what their plan is. Are they going to Usyk Dubois 2? That's a bit of a busted flush. We've already seen it. All they can do is hang on to the low blow theme. Will they do that? He can't fight. There's no real craving for Joshua 3 or Fury 3. So what are they going to do? This banner heavyweight division, which a year ago had almost not quite unlimited, but a fair few fights that were all on the offing that we all wanted to see, and they've gone. Usyk has flatlined all that out. It's quite incredible what he's done. But on the other hand, I've got to give credit to the Saudis. Quite incredible how when big money's involved and certain elements aren't at play, that judges can score fights exactly how they should be scored. How about that? No sign of Nelson Vasquez or Levi Martinez. There's two names, if you're enamoured with the sport of boxing, two judges that if you ever hear those names as being involved in a fight, you know the corruption is in. They are going to score it for the home fighter. But yeah, anyway, got to give them credit for that, for seeing that whatever happens in the ring happens in the ring. But again, I think you'll find that was purely because Turki Al Sheikh has written his check out to Frank and written his check out to Eddie and said, boom, I'm taking what I like out of your stable, and that's all being fair and above board, 50-50 straight down the middle. Whatever happens, happens. Which you've got to give him credit. It wouldn't have happened otherwise unless he was throwing the money around. Anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. Hope you listened through all that. I don't blame you if you didn't. Usually some of my average view time for my videos is 15 seconds for anybody who watches / listens. So I'm probably talking to myself at this point. But now let's try and get into the crux of the video originally, which was some predictions and forecasts for some of the players in 2025. Let's start with Tyson Fury. What shall we do? What shall we do? If you had a blank slate and you could have the decision of what he's going to do next, what would you do with him? And then you present it to him and he would say, nah, no thanks, I'm not interested in that. It only looks as if the only available fight which makes any sense to him right now, as in he's not going to fight Martin Bakole, he's not going to fight Agit Kabayel, because he doesn't need to do it, does it? There's no reason for those to take those fights. They're too high risk with too little reward. There's no, like we said, there's no Usyk third. There's not going to be a fourth fight with Deontay Wilder. The only fight which makes any commercial sense at all for him right now is the Joshua fight. But of course, that brings us to Anthony Joshua, where you've got to say he is in. Even though he and Tyson Fury are both coming off defeats, excuse me, they are in two totally different positions. Tyson Fury is coming off two slightly demoralising points defeats, where he now has to admit that Alexander Usyk is the better man. Of course he won't. He'll say he won those two fights. It's the way he is. But in his quiet moments, he's going to have to admit that, all things being even, that ship has sailed. Whereas Anthony Joshua is coming off a heavy, smashing, meme-worthy loss to Daniel Dubois. His commercial value has dropped considerably. Would Matchroom got the confidence if they put him in a fight which he isn't, I wouldn't say supposed to win, because they never would put him in a fight of that nature, but if he was ever in something approaching a 60-40 fight in his favour, would Matchroom have any confidence in him? Would Joshua have any confidence in himself? Does he want to go out there again and potentially not get defeated but get humiliated once again? I'm not quite sure if he does, especially with the money he's got in the bank. He doesn't need to do anything ever again, doesn't need to lift a finger ever again. And yet, if he does want to box, he's got two choices really. I think he's got Tyson Fury, or he's got to get ready and say, I've got to be rebuilt. I've got to have a rebuild again. I've got to beat a couple of schlubs and start again. Would the paying public put up with that? Would Eddie Hearn put up with that? Would Matchroom say, yeah, all right, we'll sacrifice another year so you can get your confidence back before we put you in for another fight, and then you'll potentially could lose that and then you'll be gone? Will they do that? I'm not sure. So it's an intriguing situation. Fury Joshua. Undoubtedly, if that fight was to be signed tomorrow with a date in, say, June, you could guarantee that TalkSport and other media outlets would whip that up so much. They would go to town and do such a good job, because they really would, that your casual fan, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, I mean that in the sense of football first, Everything else, second, third, fourth, doesn't really matter. If that Fury-Joshua fight was made, the sporting public in this country would go over the moon. It would be crazy. And by fight week, it would be a massive deal, even though it wouldn't be, if you catch my meaning. Or not, it would still be a big deal, but not as big as it should have been. Which brings me to my next point, which would be, if Fury-Joshua did get made this year, would you pay for it? Do they deserve it? They've strung it out and took the mick out of us for so long. They had so many opportunities to make this fight and they wouldn't do it. Whoever's side you're putting the blame on. And now when they've got no options left, when their commercial value is probably at its lowest point it's been, not saying that it's through the floor, it's just the lowest that it's been in their careers, and now that's the time when they make the fight. Matchroom have got nothing on the back burner other than this fight and Eubank Ben, which is another pup. So they have got no choice but to go full steam ahead on this fight right now, unless Anthony Joshua's confidence is that destroyed, it's that low, that before he even entertains a fight with Tyson Fury, there's one other man who he will consider, and there's one other man with which he could potentially, he's got a great chance of getting a victory, getting a big payday, and also creating interest in a pupper fight which has gone past its sell-by date. And we all know what I'm talking about. We're talking about Alabama's finest. We're talking about Deontay Wilder. Will we see Joshua Wilder in 2025 before we see Joshua Fury? You can't rule it out. You just cannot. It would not surprise me at all. Again, if that fight got made, I think Joe Public would go crazy. Not go crazy, but they would be very impressed. If we woke up tomorrow and saw that Joshua Wilder is signed for May the 10th, what do you think the reaction would be? I think it would be positive. I really do. But again, it's a fight we should have had several years ago, and they're forcing on us now when they've got nowhere left to turn. Anyway, I've rambled on for a bit there. I think it's been long enough. 12 minutes I've been going for. Blimey. I want to do a bit more. I was going to talk about Terence Crawford and Canelo. It does seem as if that fight could potentially be happening. There's been absolute quiet on both sides, which usually, especially after they've been talking about this fight in the recent past, when it goes quiet, it usually means there's moves being made. So it would not surprise me at all if that fight was made in the summer. Manny Pacquiao, Mario Barrios. I saw a poster, not an official poster, a bootleg poster for that fight. That fight seems to be getting closer and closer to being made. It would not surprise me at all if that was made. That would make Manny Pacquiao the first fighter to win championship if it was to be made and Manny won. Not that I'm saying that he would, but you never know. If he was to win, that would make him the first fighter to win world championships in 1990s, 2000, 2010, 2000. It'd be the first fighter to ever win world championships in 4 different decades, which, if that was to come to pass, would be an incredible achievement. But of course, it would be a case of him going straight into a world title fight off the back of inactivity for 3 years and coming off a loss as well. But anyway, as I said, I rambled on too long, and I doubt if anybody's actually listening. And one other thing I want to add is I hope you've been keeping an eye on my community posts. Posted the LVD Sport Awards for 2024. Round of the year went to Kolmatov and Ray Ford Jr. Otel bet Kolmatov, Ray Ford Jr. for their 12th round. Knockout of the year, excuse me, that went to Daniel Dubois over Anthony Joshua. I said round of the year, knockout of the year, fight of the year, I plumped for Usyk Fury 1, and fighter of the year, no surprises for who that is. That's, of course, Alexander Usyk. So all that remains for me to be said is thank you for listening, thank you for your time. Until next time, keep your gloves up and your chin down. Please subscribe to keep yourself updated. Keep an eye on everything that's going on with the channel. Thank you for your support if you're listening. Thank you if you're a subscriber. See you soon. Thank you very much for your time. This is LVD Sport, out for the count.